What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Voice, and I just got back from Philly Fan Expo, which happened this weekend, the weekend after Memorial Day, the 29th through the 31st, over at Pennsylvania Convention Center. And I gotta say, amidst through all of the walkthroughs, all the special vendors, all the comic books and everything, and I got my haul later on to basically talk about, there was a lot of highlights that basically just went throughout the entire day. There was of course, the 25-year evening with the Hobbits that happened with Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, Dominic Monaghan, and Billy Boyd. Obviously, Orlando Bloom was also there. David Tennant, because there was a Doctor Who reunion as well. Brett Spiner, Jonathan Frakes, if anybody are Star Trek fans, and even got to see Ernie Reyes Jr., who, of course, was Michelangelo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I know him as one of the little younglings in The Last Dragon. But couple big things, of course, highlights of the program, especially between the FAQs Project and the Partynerdz podcast. So shout out to Jerry Milani, who basically handled press for the event. Obviously, got to do my walkthroughs, of course, through the entire venue. And like I said before, there's tons of vendors that are there for every single person out there, whether it's independent comic book creators, whether it's people that are creating their own jewelry, their own significant Funkos. There's people committed to their own artwork that are basically there for the entire weekend. There was wrestling panels. There was actually wrestling matches that were happening below us, below the exhibit floor on the first floor, because when I came into the venue, literally heard like a whole WWE match happening like in the hallway, and I was like, what is that? And it just so happened that they had an actual wrestling ring in the bottom where they were having panels and actually having samples of matches and actual matches happening. But of course, would be remiss if I didn't talk about the comics. So one of the highlights, of course, happened to be my chance to meet Nikolas Draper-Ivey, because I hadn't had a chance to meet him. And of course, I had some things that I pulled out of my book bag in order for him to sign. So of course, I got my Static Season 1. This is the compact edition. And of course, it's always hard to basically put a signature on these glossy covers. But this was basically the Static Season 1 that happened like a couple years back. There was also of course, the Dakota incident that happened earlier this year that I also got signed by him, because he did the prelude and the exit panels for this as well. Wrote it and did the artwork on it, which was great. And then also had to get Batman Beyond and Static, the combo issue. This was a 6-issue series. Evan Narcisse and Nikolas Draper-Ivey, who basically put this together as well. Then got the chance to meet Joe Quesada. Him and Christopher Priest, of course, did The World to Come, the Marvel Knights Black Panther edition. Both of them had a chance to sign this. Christopher Priest was not there, but Joe Quesada was, and he actually had this on sale. So this was a part of the haul that I had to get the artwork. The cover on here was just like amazing. And no, a lot of these guys were like doing sketch work at their tables. So Joe Quesada was doing some of his. Jim Lee was all the way at the end of this specific like row of tables doing sketch work at his. And what I forgot to bring, which I was mad about, was that this volume cover of Wonder Woman, The Last Amazon, was actually like his cover, and I wanted to bring this in order for him to sign, and I forgot. I felt like a dummy, but that's okay. We keep going. Mark Russell, who I had a chance to talk on the program about Vanishing Point, which was a sci-fi anthology series for Mad Cave Studios. I got a chance, of course, to basically get him to sign this book, which I felt was amazing. The cover on there, the gloss cover on there, is dope. Like how that basically like shines and pops out. So he basically signed that for me. And we're actually going to get a chance, because we got to kick it a little bit and talk about the Forgotten Divine that's going to be released for Ahoy Comics, and I'll have a chance to talk with him about that as well. Then some favorites of the show, people who have been on the show in the past. I got a chance to talk to Greg Elysee. So I'm a big fan of mythology, all types of mythology, and he centers a lot of his storylines around either folklore, mythology. So if you've never dived into the Isnana series, the Were a Spider, this is basically African folklore. I already had the first volume. I have the second volume. I have Birthday Day, which was done by George Gant. And I have the Drums of Agugan, which was also his as well. I picked up the second one just in case I wanted to pass it to him. I definitely just want to support those type of creators when I'm out there. And then his new Kickstarter, Hammer, John Henry versus the Robot Apocalypse. So John Henry, if you don't know, is American folklore, tall tales and legends, Pecos Bill, Paul Bunyan. You know, these are the type of like storylines that sometimes get shifted in the comic books that I feel like a lot of people need to dive into. And I just actually, when I got back and I had a chance to talk to David Bram, who is the artist on this particular book, I told him, I was like, look, when the second volume hits, we need to talk about it. I need to get you and Greg on the horn so we can just like literally talk about how this first issue went. And the second issue was, which is probably going to get released later this year, which I find is like phenomenal. Also got introduced to a new creator, which I always like to do. So I like to get introduced to new creators who I've never really like dived in their books or anything like that. So Ben Passmore brought me a boatload of these, what he called the quarterly day glory hole, which is it's a 3-issue series. And he also has moved This Is America. He's from Philly, so obviously want to dive into these books, of course, as well, and possibly, of course, reach out to him in order to get him on the pod as well. And then lastly, H.H. German, this particular book, Afro-Latino from the Bronx, Calico, Street Math, combination of Black Panther and Punisher, if you want to basically say that. He's the ultimate defender of animals. Actually, buying one of these copies basically contributes your money to the Humane Society for animal shelters, which I found was fascinating for an indie creator who basically had a love for animals and pretty much centered his storyline, his character off of that basis, which I felt was like amazing. But overall, Fan Expo was great. Obviously, I would have liked for one side of the room to have a little bit more Wi-Fi than the other side, because it was hard to basically like just have some retail purchases on one side of the room. The Wi-Fi was a little tricky, but overall, fun time. I felt like the people were enjoying themselves. Everybody was like, of course, taking pictures. There's plenty of cosplayers that are there constantly throughout the day. And the big thing, I think day one and day two were really strong. Day three, you could tell like it's always like that third day of the convention or that fourth day of the convention is where everybody's like pretty much poop. But you do see a lot more youngins, like a lot more kids there on a Sunday and everything, and they get to enjoy everything. Mr. T had a panel where he basically was just motivating everybody the entire time, talking about like the good old days when he was Clubber Lang, or when he was B.A. Baracus from the A-Team. So those were like really cool highlighted moments that were pretty much out there. It was really fun to see Pornsak Pichetshote there, because he, of course, is going to be releasing Absolute Green Arrow really soon. That it's all, and the rumors are that basically it's already sold like 1 million copies. So it was cool to see somebody that's like just about to like bust open the doors to his particular comic for DC and about to go on a tangent, and that just happened to be him like being there like those 3 days, which was like really cool. I am really interested in seeing what Nikolas Draper-Ivey does now, because I know he's been going through like a couple of things with DC and everything, obviously with the Static series and everything that was put out. And I know one thing I did get out of him, I know he didn't want to say much, was that he wants to do a lot more creator-owned things and things that he actually enjoys putting together. He, of course, comes from the manga inspired territory, and he does absolutely phenomenal work. I loved seeing him in the comic space, but I also know that he does amazing manga work, and that might be something that would be with him for the future. So end goals, we're going to get to talk to Mark Russell again. We're going to get to talk to Greg Anderson, Elysee. I enjoyed the 25 years of The Hobbit, the evening with the Hobbits that pretty much happened out there. I enjoyed seeing Ernie Reyes Jr. It's an overall good time. Obviously, Philly is a place that when they have kind of like nerd-centered events like Philly Fan Expo, they do a great job with it, and I'm looking forward to coming back. So for all of us, between the Partynerdz podcast and myself with the FAQs Project, I'd like to give a shout out, of course, to Jerry Milani for basically putting it together and having myself as well as a couple other members of the team. My boy, your boy Ed, who was down there basically looking at the indie wrestling panels and everything like that. He loves that. That's his thing. And it was real cool to see like an entire wrestling ring in the middle of one of the convention spaces and having a full-on match just happening right then and there. But look forward to it. Hope to be doing this again, and I will see you guys next time, especially when Philly Fan Expo arrives next year, the week after Memorial Day again. So see you guys soon.